Hello, this is Mr. Jared, and in this video tutorial, I'm going to be 3D modeling this object in SOLIDWORKS. So this object is in the unit where I taught using the hole wizard and the different types of holes there are. So this drawing itself demonstrates different drilled holes or through holes, and it also demonstrates a counterbore hole. It also demonstrates in here an alternative view. So this drawing is also part of the examples where I just went over alternative views, and I'm showing a half section here. So a quarter of it is removed away, and if I were to look at this from a side view or a top view, it would show that only half of this was section viewed or removed away. So it's showing the internal of this pipe. So we basically have a part out here, and then there's almost a connecting tube, and then back to like what I would call a flange in the back of it. So we always start by looking at our units. We have MMGS up here. I can see that the origin is on the front. And even though these are simple circle holes, I'm not going to be drawing those circles when I do my extrusions because I want to practice using the hole wizard. So I'm actually going to draw all of this, and then at the end of it, I'll come back in and I will add sketches on the surfaces here, and I'm going to be adding sketch dots to that, or sketch points, and then using the hole wizard to cut these through. So let's begin. Let's go over to SolidWorks. We're going to start a new part. And the origin is right here on the front of this, so that means we're going to be sketching on the front plane. The first thing I want to do is come down here and switch my units from IPS to MMGS. Then I'm going to go up to the Sketch tab, select Sketch, and I'm going to be sketching on the front plane. Now you can do this in numerous different ways here, but one of the ways that I like to do this, because this thing is symmetrical, is I kind of draw construction lines and I quadrant this off. So we can see the top left part of this would be identical to the top right. The whole entire top of this would be identical to the bottom of this. So that means I'm going to use a construction line or two here to kind of quadrant this off and then mirror it across. So I'm going to go up and get my line tool, and I'll check the box for construction. I'm going to start over here to the left of my origin. I'm going to click, go to my origin, and then back up. And then I'll hit escape. Now that's my quadrant up here that I'm going to be drawing. Now looking back at my picture, I can see over here that I have a big radius of 25. And if I follow that arrow back, it shows me that it comes from the origin. So that means the center point is on the origin. So I'm going to be using the center point arc here. So I'll just kind of click on my construction line and just kind of curl up, and I'll stop. And I'm not drawing from all the way down here. I'm just doing from the construction line to here. This is then connected with a straight line, and up at the top we have another little curve. It's not dimensioned up here, but if we look down at the bottom, it's a little hard to understand and see this at first because there's two different arrows, but we can see this one says it's a diameter of 10 through holes. So this arrow is pointing to the actual hole, and the other little arrow, which I wish it was out here, is saying a radius of 12. So we do have another little curved end, but it's a radius of 12. So the center point of this radius comes from the center of that circle. So that's also helpful in this case because the center of that, if you can follow this line, is straight up and down with the origin. And it didn't get dimensioned down here, but it did over here. It is actually 38 up. Okay, and again, I can prove that it's symmetrical, even though it doesn't say this is symmetrical, because the 76 divided by 2 is 38. So the front half of this obviously is symmetrical, but this isn't from that. That's why you don't see a warning or anything down here. It says it's symmetrical. Okay, just this front part is. So that was a lot of information all at once. Follow along with me here. I'm going to go up and get my center point arc. I'm going to start on my origin. I'm going to go out to the end of my construction line, and I don't want it to go all the way around. I just want a little one in here. There we go. Okay, I'm just going to end somewhere about here where it's kind of pointing up towards this way. Now I'm going to do the top part. The trick with this is instead of going from the top of the construction line, I'm going to go on the construction line, okay, where my center point would be. And I'm not going off the top because then it would be open up here and I wouldn't be able to kind of stop my dimension, or my arc rather. So if I go from here and then click the end, I can wrap this back down around like that. And you can see the construction line now kind of closes this in. Now I'll get my line tool and I'll kind of connect here. And yours might look a little bit uglier than that. That's okay. We want to make tangent connections at both sides here. So I'll just select the dots, hit tangent, select this dot, hit tangent. And you can see, even though it might have grew the arcs, it still just adjusted my construction line and it kept the center point on it. So that's why I like to do it this way. Go ahead and dimension now. So this one over here on the left is going to be 25. Okay, and you can see mine drastically shrunk. Hopefully yours doesn't mess up like this. Mine is going to be 12 at the top, so is yours, obviously. It might have adjusted it a little bit. You might need to zoom in. And then we said the center point of this top arc is 38 up. So I want to get my dimension tool. I want to click on the center point and down to the origin, and that's going to be 38 up. So that just fully defined that part. Now we can use the mirror tool. We can select these three little lines. Mirror about is going to be your vertical one first, green check. You can select the whole entire thing, mirror entities, and we're going to do the horizontal line this time. So it kind of moved it all down. Now again, we are just doing the solid body here. We're going to come back with the whole wizard later on. And I don't want to overcomplicate things by putting in work points now, so I'll just kind of leave it be. Now I can see that this is fully defined, but I still have these blue dots for my construction lines. That's not going to keep it from being underdefined or from being fully defined, but I don't like blue dots anywhere. So I'm just going to drag that away and drag it back, drag away, drag it back, just so it truly fully defines this. Okay. Now I'll go over to my features tab. I'm going to hit extrude. I want to look back at my picture here for a second. And I can see up the top where it gives me my overall measurements going back. I can see from here to here is 12. The overall is 70. And then the back flange is 10. So they're not all equal here. But this front part being 12 is where we're at right now. So I'm going to extrude that back. So I want to switch directions. And I just want to make this 12 and hit the green check. Okay. Now looking back at this, I now want to draw the connecting piece. Okay, so I could have drawn a circle on the front already. I understand that. There's other ways I could do this, but I'm just drawing this as how most high school students would. So now to make this connecting piece, I'll draw another sketch on the front. I'm going to draw a circle, and that circle is going to be the outside of this connecting tube. I'm not dealing with the inside yet. So the outside, which is 36. So I'll sketch on this surface, get my circle tool. I'm going to draw out. I'm going to dimension that. That's going to be 36. And now when I go to extrude, I want to go back to my picture, and this is why I read off all three of these. So it was 12 from the origin back. Well, the 70 also comes from the origin. So we're actually going through this. If you were to sketch on the back of the shape that we just made, then you would have had to do some math, 70 minus 12. But since it just comes from the origin, I just sketched right on the front, and I'm just going to be extruding back through my solid part, and I'm going to go all the way to the end. You could just go to here, draw the flange, and then extrude out. You just need to be mindful of where you're drawing from and the simple math here of these three numbers. So I'm just going to do this in an easy way. I'm drawing on the front. I'm going to switch my direction here or rotate it backwards, and I want to make this 70. So that's the full length of this. I'm going to hit the green check. Now I'm going to sketch on the back side of that. So I'm going to rotate around, and when I sketch on the back of this, now we're just drawing the flange part. And since we're not even doing those holes right now, it's pretty much just one big circle. That one big circle has a diameter of 76. Okay, so I'll get my circle tool, go right off of this, and I'm going to dimension that, and that's going to be a diameter of 76. Now when I extrude, since we already did the full 70, I want to switch back towards the main body of this and this was only 10. Okay, so now I have the main body of this done. So here I want to add in my different sketch points or my work points. So I'm going to go to the Sketch tool, and I want to select Sketch, and I'm going to click on this front surface first. Now this is pretty easy because we already have this drawn. So I'm going to use one of these work points up here, and it's going to be in the center of this arc. So if I just move my mouse over the arc first, I'm not clicking, I'm just pausing on that line. You can see the center point pops up. I'll put one there. I'm going to put one on the origin, and I'll move over here and then put it back on there. Okay, I'm going to hit the green check, and then I'll hit return. So that's the first sketch. Okay, let's finish that. So let's go to the Features tab. Let's go to Hole Wizard. And right now I had all three of those selected. So let's hit cancel for a sec. That's because I still have this sketch selected. Let's uncheck that sketch or deselect it. Let's try to do this again. Hole Wizard. And now nothing's selected. Okay, so we're going to look back at this. I'm only going to do the top one and the bottom one. And if you're looking at these, you can see this says 2 holes. So that's why I didn't do all of these, because they are different sizes. These front 2 holes are 10. The back holes are 8. So that's why I've only did the front 2 as of right now. Okay, so these are just straight drilled holes, and their diameter of 10. So that means I'm going to be on the third hole type here, which is just normal hole. Okay, we are in metrics. We want ANSI metric. I don't necessarily think this matters too much if you're in one of these different ones, or other than the dowel or the drill. But I just find myself using the dowel hole. That's perfectly fine. I guess it does say drill on the page, but it doesn't really matter. It's still just a plain hole for this circumstance. You can turn off the show custom sizing. We don't really need that. And for the size, we want to choose on here what it is. So this is a 10 in diameter. Now, if it didn't have the measurement you wanted, obviously hit custom sizing and type it in. For end condition, so this is where it's going to stop going through. We don't want this just to be through all because it might run all the way back into here. So the thickness of this front face is 12. So I could just make this 12. So it's going to go right through. Okay. Scrolling down here sometimes, I don't know why, but my computer sometimes likes to have this option checked, even though I've never used it. So I just always scroll down to make sure that's not checked. I'll go over to the Positions tab. And if you want to read all of this, it basically says, you can do an existing 2D sketch or a 3D sketch. I most of the time just select 3D sketch. I don't even bother with the 2D. Okay, and here it's just asking me where I want to put my points. So if I move up to this point, I can click, move down to this point and click, and then I can hit the green check. Okay, and now you can see it cut those holes through. And the really unique way of how the hole wizard actually works is it didn't just take a circle and cut it through. It actually drew an axis through that point, and then it drew a rectangle in the radius of the diameter that we told it, and then it revolve cut it all the way around. I mean, that's a lot of steps for that one little hole wizard to do. Okay, so that's the first part of it. If you don't want to see that sketch, you can go over here and turn that sketch off. I'm going to leave that sketch 5 for me. Just hit the eyeball for hide. It should go away. Now the inside has a counterbore. Okay, so if we're looking at this inside, there's a lot going on with this, but you can kind of see it goes down, there's another flat piece, and then that goes through. Up here, this is also chamfered at the end. That's why there's like this extra little line going on here. So for the middle part, this is pretty easy. It just says 20 through, that's this hole all the way through, counterbore at 26, that's from here to here, and that's the depth of 18 is here to here. Okay, so that's a lot of numbers, but it's pretty simple. They're in order of how the counterbore actually works. So go back up to Hole Wizard. We want the counterbore, which is the first one. And you might get this warning that says show custom sizing or keep custom sizing. You can just hit reset. That's perfectly fine. Okay, again, ANSI metric. As far as the bolts go, I don't really think it matters on this. I'll just keep the hex bolt because we're not using any of that stuff anyways. And then coming down here, maybe I'm wrong on this, but when you check the box for show custom sizing, it kind of overrides this stuff anyways, even though your number that's going to be displayed will still say like M5 for some reason. I don't know why that is. I kind of believe if you check the box for show custom sizing, it should kind of turn these off or override this, just make this gray. Just normal fit here. We've talked about this before, but we're just going to use a normal fit. Doesn't specify anything different. And then the tiny little pictures here actually go right down how the counter bore is measured. So the first one, that is this measurement here, is 20 through, counter bore of 26, depth of 18. So 20 through, counter bore of 26, depth of 18. Okay. Now you may or may not see this. This is talking about the angle of the bit at the very end. And the reason why I'm seeing that is because right now my end condition is still set to blind and 12. So that means it would only go down 12. And what's the end of that going to look like? Well, if I change this to through all, that's going to disappear up here. And this does go through the whole thing. Once again, scroll down, make sure that you don't have anything checked. Position, 3D sketch. And here's the other one weird thing that I have noticed. When you're trying to put a point on the origin, the 3D sketch doesn't always work. I've tried it with a 2D, and sometimes it also glitches for me. So this is one extra step that you have to do. I just put it to the side a little bit, not too far where it's going to yell at you and say it's not possible, but just to the side a little bit. I hit the green check, and then I go back in and I edit that sketch. So you can see when you do a 3D sketch, it creates a sketch here that you can edit. So I'll just edit this. I'm going to take that little point, I'm just going to drag it over to the origin. And now it locks on to the origin. When I hit return from sketch, now it worked. Okay, and it's fully defined. Now, why wouldn't it let me do it the first time? I don't know. It's just one of those things. Okay, so now that whole front part is almost done. It has a little chamfer on here as well. So if we look at this, we can see that it says 3 at 45. So let's go up to the Features tab. Underneath Fillet, we'll select Chamfer. And we want this to be 3 at 45 degrees. We'll just click on this top edge and the green check. Okay, so the whole front part is pretty much done. So now back here, we're going to sketch on this surface. And looking back at my picture, I can see that there are holes. There are 6 holes. And I'm guessing they're evenly spaced because it doesn't specify. So you just kind of have to assume. Okay, there are 6 holes. They are 8 in diameter. And it's on a 58 diameter circle. So like a construction circle. So I'm going to draw on that surface, which we already are. I'm going to get my circle tool, go right off of the origin and draw out. Okay, and once you draw that circle, I'm going to check the box that says for construction, and I'll dimension that so I already know that it's the correct size that I want. Okay. Now, you could mathematically try to figure this out evenly spaced with 6 of them, but I'm going to use my work point, and then I'm going to circular pattern this. So I'm taking the work point, putting it right up here at the top because I know one of them is directly above that origin. And then I'm going to go underneath linear pattern to circular pattern. Okay. As far as where I want it to go, I'm just going to select the center point. That is the origin. So it kind of knows. I'm going to select equal distance or equal spacing if you don't already have that. You want 6 of them. And your point should already be selected, the entities. Okay, that would be 0.4. That would be this. So just hit the green check. And it should be fully defined already. It'll just all be locked on. So that was pretty easy to figure out. Okay, because I don't know what the exact degrees are that these are down and up. Now I'll go over to the Features tab. Okay, and Hole Wizard is not available right now, and that's because I'm still in my sketch. So I'll just hit Return, go to Hole Wizard. Okay, and right now I'm on my counter bore still. I want to switch over to the normal hole, just the drilled hole, and you can just hit reset custom sizing because we're not even going to use it. So same thing, ANSI, metric, drilled or Dow, it doesn't really matter there. You can turn off the custom sizing, and these are 8. Scroll all the way down here. Okay, those are 8. And this time, because we're starting on this surface and going back, you can have through all selected. That's perfectly fine. Okay, and hit the green check. Now, it already selected all of mine because I just came from that sketch. If yours are not selected, you could go into the position tab, hit 3D sketch, click on all of them. Or I even believe if you click 2D sketch and you click on that sketch, it should select all of them. But now they're all done. And the last but not least thing here that I got to do to draw this is add the fillets. So it says fillets and rounds. There's only 3 of them, a radius of 2. I personally would think in real life, if this was a cast alloy steel object, I would think there would be 4 fillets. Maybe like you would cast the front, you would cast the back, and that's why this is filleted. That's why it's welded together or, fused together basically. So that would also be like rounded. That would be a weld bead. It's pointing here, so that's another weld bead or, a spot that they would be connected. I would also think on the back of this, it would be filleted, but it only says 3. Okay, and there's these fancy arrows pointing where it is, so I'll just follow that. So that is a fillet of 2. Okay. So set that to 2. That was this front edge, this connector, rotate around, and the other connector. See, I think it would be this edge too, but it doesn't have that. They would probably surface off this part of the flange and this front face, especially if it is chamfered here. But the green check. We're going to change this to cast alloy steel. Okay, let's evaluate mass properties. So we have 760.64 grams. 760.64 grams, and it looked like everything in my center of mass was also correct. If you got that, you can save it and move on to the next one. If not, keep on problem solving and figure out where you went wrong.